Welcome back to Business Day TV's rolling coverage on the 2026 national budget. You've just returned from unpacking the budget from an economic perspective. Now, political parties, various industry groups and business organizations outlined their expectations for this year's budget. Is the business community satisfied, though, with what's been tabled? Mthulu, President of the South African Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and John Dludlu, CEO of the Small Business Institute, joins us now. Gentlemen, good to have both of you with us this afternoon, Business Day TV. I think, John, I'm going to start with you. What's your general takeaway? You deal with small business. What are you after what you heard this afternoon?
Ray, greetings and thank you for inviting us, and greetings to Advocate Kulu as well. I think obviously all of us have to be relieved that this is a budget that was relatively incident-free. Coming from 2025, if you will recall, it was a very controversy-dogged budget. So we're quite relieved that this was a relatively smooth presentation. My feel is that I think the minister is realistic, especially around the focus on GDP growth. This is very disappointing that we're still stuck on the trajectory of a 1% growth rate. But these are the signs of the times. The damage to the economy has been so severe that it will take much longer for us to get out of this trajectory. Up until about 2028, I think, only then can we realistically expect anything about 2% range. From a small business point of view, we're obviously relieved by and we welcome the fact that he has increased the thresholds for capital gains tax. And we look forward to hearing what the Minister of Small Business Development will announce about the allocation that is given to that department and the DFIs that support small business development.
Yeah. Right, okay, that's small business. Now to, or other, I won't say big business, but other business, big business. Advocate, your take. I mean, there's some major takeaways there.
Good afternoon, Ray. Afternoon, John, and afternoon to the viewers. Yes, certainly. I think our view, our initial reaction, obviously, it's still hot off the press, and our members are still going to be peeling it off. But I think what we pick up as organized business is the fact that this budget try to really cover on all the major things that concern the private sector. I mean, fortunately, we have a minister now who has officially and publicly embraced the fact that reforms, resetting, and partnerships are the way to go. So we are encouraged by the fact that he really reminded the world about the work that has been done in terms of changing the integrity of the financial institutions by getting out of the grey listing, by making sure that we are upgraded, and obviously setting ourselves up to be part of the family of good governance. On the other element, obviously, he tried without much progress, obviously, today, to talk about the fact that we are now going to move away from giving money to institutions that are inefficient. So we are impressed by the fact that we are now going to get to a level where performance-linked allocations are the reality. And if you're unperforming, it's going to be moved to an institution that can work. So we are happy that institutionally we are making great progress. And obviously he spoke a lot about new initiatives around data infrastructure, which is very important for us to support data infrastructure. So a minister who is embracing the new economy, who's understanding the role of partnerships, but also making sure that performance and meritocracy is the order of the day moving forward.
Yeah, you see, that's the thing. John, I want to go back to you on this one. I mean, growth, 1.6%. That's the target for this year. It was 1.4, now I say 1.6. Is that good enough, or is it just going to be small steps? John? Sure, John, I'm not sure if you can.
Yeah, hi, Ray. You know what? The scale of the challenge suggests that we might not even get to 1.6%. But as a statement of aspiration, I think we have to hope that we can get there. What is holding us back? We still have very small steps and incremental progress on the freight logistics system. Yes, we have now conquered the energy crisis, but we still have other challenges. Getting goods out of the mines to the ports, and then from the ports is still a very big challenge. But I think we're on the right path.
Yeah.
What we have to build on is we have to continue to build on the momentum that we have right now. So, for example, Ray, I think if you look at one of the things that the minister announced today, it will not really contribute to the 1.6 GDP growth target, but the separation, institutional separation, and financial independence of the Office of the Chief Justice must build confidence.
Yeah.
It is a step in the right direction as far as getting us to stay out of the grey list target, a grey list, because we have those institutions financially independent from then the world's investment confidence grows, as is Parliament independence as well.
Yeah. See, that's the interesting part. Also mention of special courts and things like that. So just looking at what this means for business as well, and I think, John, I'm going to ask you the same question. I love this attitude to the VAT threshold for businesses. It's been at R1 million, now 2.3. They've increased that now for business. It shows that they really are thinking about small business and how to stimulate that small business. Advocate, your thoughts.
Yes, I think that's probably the most material thing that has come out of the budget recently. We've always spoke about SMEs being the drivers of the economy. However, the minister never really stuck his neck out to give material support fiscally to SMEs. So over and above having the department, here you have a Ministry of Finance saying, I'm doing my part from the fiscal point of view. I'm leaving it now to policy and regulation to make sure that SMEs thrive. So I think we welcome the raise. What it does actually, over and above the debate about the tax element, it actually reduces the regulatory burden on SMEs. I mean, to maintain a compliant VAT account, to do the reconciliation, all that costs money and costs time. Sure. And in some instances, if you make one step, you can lose business if your client insists on tax compliance certificates. So it's very important that we remove that regulatory burden, because SMEs are already compliant in other forms of taxation. I think moving forward now, you want to get to a point where you say, but where is the market size? How is big business responding to taking orders from small businesses? How is government responding to that? And how are they paying SMEs on time? So I think this introduces a moment in time where we are now going to be able to quantify how SMEs are being supported over and above the rhetoric and the intent. I think the ministers are introducing a new generation to say every year we'll be able to quantify who is doing what and how we bring building the cake for SMEs, and obviously in the process making sure that the regulatory burden is reduced.
Yeah. John, your thoughts on this? I mean, Mto, I think you're quite correct in what you're saying, because small business needs this injection. They need this. Is small business then getting enough support? What did you think from this budget?
Thanks, Ray. I have to echo what Advocate Kulu has just said. We welcome the increase of the holds, and of course, we also welcome the fact that the minister was very deliberate. This is a budget that shows that he is in tune with the sentiment out there, especially from the small business segment of the economy. By saying that there will be no tax increases in this budget, I think he was responding to a call by small businesses that they are already so under pressure in the local government sphere.
Right, we're starting to lose you there, John.
We come out of a very high interest rates environment. So really, we appreciate the relief that he has granted to the small business segment of the economy.
Yeah, it's quite something, it really is. And then advocates, I mean, general taxation, we've touched on that already, but general taxation, it's as though the finance minister just kept everything, not on a hold, but he said to everyone, taxation, there was going to be that 20 billion rand increase. We're going to stop on that. That's quite welcome, actually, because it comes at a time now where individuals and businesses are battling a little bit.
Yeah, it was actually such a great gift back to South Africans because you know that part of the pillars of this administration was that they want to curb the increase in cost of living. And I think the fact that you are able to put money back into South Africans, so to speak, is a great deal. But it also points to something that a lot of people have been, disillusioned about, the fact that how does efficiency actually impact South Africans? And I think I appreciate all these kinds of things because now you have examples to say, if you have an efficient SARS that is able to collect revenue in a generally good economy, those benefits can be passed back to South Africans. So we are not just talking about efficiency for its own sake. You are now able to say, based on the higher than expected collections, we are now giving back South Africans almost a 20 billion rand gift. And I think if we go back to different parts of government and say, drive efficiency, drive savings, and improve the quality of life, this is how it can look like. So yes, it's a taxation gesture. I think it's great that when we have the money, we can protect South Africans so that when we collect, at least, there's tax patriotism. But I think one thing that I take out of that is the fact that once you have an efficient SARS, you are able to save 20 billion. Can you imagine an efficient other departments and how many other 20 billions you can put back into South African pockets?
Gosh, I could just carry on dreaming, I must admit, because that would be fantastic. Then we have to talk about them, local municipalities. I mean, John, looking at what the finance minister had to say, they've got to tread very cautiously because they're giving these municipalities money, but it's not being spent. So there has to be a whole rethink in how they do this, John.
Yeah, Ray, I know we're now seeming to be praising us of the finance minister, but it is very important to also acknowledge the fact that this is an election year. He could have gone big on spending, he could have gone big on populist promises, and he did not. We really have to acknowledge that. And he was very, very forthright around the state of municipalities. Our municipalities are killing this economy. When you invest, you do not invest in Pretoria. You do not invest in the national government. You invest at a locality, whether it is in eThekwini, whether it is in Johannesburg. You have to have an infrastructure that works. You have to have a municipality that works, collects revenue, what is due to it, and then provides. The minister could have gone populist around the water issue. He did not. We really have to appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely right, gentlemen. One of the big takeaways, gentlemen, that I did make is that the debt ceiling is coming down a little bit. So our cost to GDP is getting a little bit better. Advocates, I want to start with you. Are you feeling more confident now that we are addressing this debt ceiling?
Look, the numbers are pointing in the right direction. I think we have not done a major reduction, but also the increases are not runaway increases. And I think we've always been very skeptical that even if we want to increase debt, it must be debt that is driven by productive assets. So I think that appreciation that if we are to increase debt, it must be linked to a productive economy that is embedded. I think to turn the tide, to reduce it, obviously it won't be overnight. It's a crisis globally. But I think in South Africa, there's a greater appreciation that something moving towards a debt anchor, I think it's becoming a reality. Because even, for instance, one of the commitments that we made into paying back our subscription to multilateral forums is the fact that we are now actually saying, coming out of the FATF grade listing, we actually want to move with the world and make sure that we are held accountable on things like debt consolidation and making sure that we spend money wisely. So it might not be down where we want to be in yesteryears, but I don't see it getting any worse. because I think that this government has committed itself to having rational debt and debt that is productive, which is good for the economy.
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, John, I want to bring you into the conversation here. Looking at what the IMF warned about, saying, South Africa, you need to watch out. This is actually a major problem for you, your debt ceiling. Are you feeling a little bit confident now that it's actually on the radar of our government and they're doing something about it, John?
Ray, my view about debt and public debt is that we shouldn't badmouth it. Every economy requires a level of debt. I think the point that Advocate Kulu was saying is, do you have the ability to pay back the money that you owe? And then what are you using the debt for? If you're using the debt to just service more debt, that's bad debt. But if we are using the debt to grow the economy, grow tax revenues, and then invest in productive activities, that's the debt that we want. We're now heading towards returning to 2009 environment. Because between 2009, our public debt just ballooned without the requisite economic growth, without the economy being transformed in such a way that the manufacturing sector, we re-industrialize the country, and we stop relying on raw materials and agricultural produce for growth.
Yeah. You see, that's the thing as well. 2009 to say 2018, there was, I don't know, they call those the missing years, but there was a major problem where debt happened there. Changing tack a little bit, advocates want to talk about sin taxes. And again, I call it a moderate budget because once again, not massive increases. We're looking at inflationary increases. And, you know, British American Tobacco, they got to mention as well the fact that they've had to close up some of the operations in South Africa because of this illicit trade. Again, it's on the government's radar, and once again, not too much of a hammering there.
Yeah, well, I think those sin taxes are always going to go up. I think this time around they were not too excessive because obviously we always keep an eye on those. It's an easier tax to collect. However, you also don't want to increase it such that it also destroys related industries. You know, people can talk about the increase in alcohol, but they forget the knock-on effect on tourism and restaurants and hospitality. So it's a bigger decision, and I think the minister was very wise in keeping to a lower number. I think also on the issue of the alcohol itself as well as tobacco, I think the minister also is trying to regain some sort of credibility from an enforcement point of view, because remember, tobacco, I mean, BAT is closed now, but even the alcohol industry has been complaining about illicit production. So you can't continue to increase taxes if you are not able to follow through with the enforcement, and the bigger producers are the ones that pay the most but ultimately have the biggest loss. So I think it's always going to be coming. It's an easy target. People who love their smoke, they love their drinking, but I think we must also understand that it must also be coupled with the necessary law enforcement, because secondary to these products is an economy that we have to protect. And I'm glad that you didn't even touch on the gambling portion, because that also is going to cause problems. It's bad for society, but I think we must not have a knee-jerk reaction, because we still have to discuss it further. So he avoided the gambling tax, and I think it was good because industry still engaged on it.
You know, John, advocates, you're quite right. And when it comes down to these sin taxes as well, it was a very measured way of doing it. It was a very measured way that they sorted out what they wanted to do. Will take just so much. A lot can come from this if they just stop this illicit trade. If you think of the billions of rand that's been lost every single time somebody buys a packet of cigarettes and it's not on SARS radar, do you think that they're doing enough to stop this, or is this just like the first step?
Ray, I had expected the minister to talk about what government is going to do to ensure that not only BAT leaves the country or stops producing here. I had expected that he would say something because this squarely within his area of responsibility, tax collection and ensuring that SARS gets all the imports, the excise duties that it deserves. And unfortunately, we did not hear more. Hopefully, that before the commissioner retires in April, we would get an indication about what the industry is doing to stop the illicit trading in the syntaxes, in the sin industries, as well as the police, because it's not only a SARS problem. It is a problem that requires law enforcement. It's a problem that requires that a neighborhood watch, including the industry, is set up to curb this scourge.
Yeah. Interesting. The army and the police, I think, getting 1 billion each for crime prevention. That was a very interesting move, Advocate. But looking at the SANDF now, and I loved what the finance minister said. He said, we've got to trim it down. We've got to make it a sleek and really capable fighting force. I think, Advocate, it's one thing to give the Defence Force money, but then what do you do with that money? It's an interesting scenario.
It's an interesting scenario, and I think the SANDF issues, and I know now we're bringing them into crime fighting, but there's a bigger problem with the SANDF because remember the state security is already actually at higher risk if you look at their track record recently and their problems in terms of bread and butter issues. So I think there is a bigger issue, and we need to actually get a sense from the Defence Force about how they are turning things around and how they're going to be efficient with their purse. Previously, obviously, when we had the money, I think we tend to spend on a lot of different programs. It will be good to see how the department itself is able to regain the confidence of society by streamlining, obviously focusing on domestic security and being very strategic about what they do on the international front. I would not want it to now shift its focus to simply crime fighting, because now it's being conflated with the Defence Force being deployed to support the police. That is not their job. They must still remember that they are just a force multiplier to support, say, in hotspots like where there's gang, in construction mafias and illegal mining. But they must still answer the question about whether they are still a fit and modern army. And I think it will be good to see in the ministerial budget vote about how they are able to prove to South Africans that it's not just a cash problem, it's a systems problem, it's a human resource problem, and it's a strategy problem.
Yeah. You know what? The devil's always in the detail. The devil is always in the detail. We have to break that down just to have a look and see where that money's been spent, especially on equipment. Right. Just to sum things up, I want to start with you, John, just to talk about what's your big takeaway from this budget speech 2026?
It is a maintenance budget. It's not a budget of new ideas, big ideas. I think where we are, we really need to be consolidating. So I welcome it in that respect. I must say two things to Ray. The one was we are setting up a new institution. That bothers me a great deal. This credit guarantee vehicle, we don't have a very good track record as government in setting up new institutions. So I'm quite nervous about it coming onto the market. Do we have the capacity? Do we have a capable state? Will it be set up on time, within budget? That worries me a great deal.
Yeah. Right, advocates, if you want to sum up our conversation, what do you think? What did you like today and what did you not like? What did you think was missing?
I think what I liked, which we don't talk a lot about, is the fact that there seems to be progress in the reforms of the policy and the framework around public-private partnerships. The minister today was able to name a number of projects and encourage stakeholders to come up to the front. So I think South Africans must not lose the opportunity that we're actually now in a state where we are reforming our triple Ps to the extent that we can get successful projects like the Gautrain. He mentioned it, that we are almost close to another thing as significant as that. So I think what I really like is the fact that we are building an institutionalized way of life in terms of crowding in private sector in a way that is viable. And if you can get back to the days where we can close deals like the Gautrain, I think we are onto something in terms of triple Ps. What I always don't like is the fact that we don't highlight sufficiently the real, and name and shame the real problems. You know, I know sometimes it's a political statement as well, but I think we need to get to a point where if we are saying we are rebuilding institutions, we need to call out the culprits and be able to be clear-minded about where the problems lie, how the solutions look like, so that when we put our money, we can follow it.
Yeah, take action now. Gentlemen, thank you so much to both of you. It's good to chat, and thanks for taking the time to talk to us on Budget 2026 on Business Day TV. Thank you. And thanks to my guests, Mthonqulu, President of the South African Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and to John Glutlu, CEO of the Small Business Institute. And that's where I leave things with you today. Up next, it's Ntao Leng will bring you the politics behind the budget with Susan Boyson and Asandang Gao Sheng right after this, so don't go anywhere.